Tessira's POV. Never in a million years did I ever expect that Tessira Gridshade, would be abducted by anyone. The stench of this place was enough to kill me, and right now, I wished I could just run back home and under my blanket. I couldn't tell how long I had been locked up here, but I knew it was a very long time. I would always see the bright sky, which was the day, then the dark sky, which was the night. But I still couldn't count how long I had been here. The food here was also not healthy for someone like me to feed on. But I also had no choice because I didn't want to end up starving to death. The room I was kept in was an old room filled with old items, except the fancy symbol on the wall. They couldn't even find a better room to keep me in. Each time I saw a rat or a cockroach run by, I would shriek and try to get away from it immediately. But it was fruitless. I was tied up and couldn't move. My wolf, Lyra, had already gone mute and wouldn't even communicate with me on how to get out of this place. In one word, I was stuck here. Just then, I heard the click of the door and realized that someone was coming into the room. I shut my eyes immediately, pretending to have fallen asleep as I heard the footsteps approaching me. The presence of the person in the room caused chills to run down my spine, but I still stayed mute, not daring to move. You think acting to be asleep each time is going to save you? The cold voice rang in my ears and I tensed. But I couldn't show this person that I was really awake. I attended the best acting school in Fangoria, and this was when the acting came in handy. Open your eyes, or I'll drop a bucket of ice on you. The deep voice warned, and I hurriedly obeyed, not even knowing when I did it. There was a guard standing before me as he watched my face with his cold eyes. "You're very silly," he said, and before I knew it, he walked up to me and loosened the ropes that held me. At first, I thought he was finally letting me go, but after a while, I realized that I was wrong. He pulled me harshly out of the room after tying a blindfold around my eyes. I was so close to tearing up as he dragged me to the goddess knows where. Soon, I was placed on a seat and the blindfold was taken away. I squinted my eyes, letting my vision adjust to the sudden brightness of the new environment. I looked around, trying to take in the sight of everything before me. I saw 2 guards standing at the corner and another standing before me. I realized that I was currently in what seemed like an interrogation room. Tears stung my eyes as I began to miss home and my dad. "Hello, Tessira." The guard before me, who had his face covered, smiled as he waved. I whimpered and managed to ask, "Who are you?" He just stared at me and suddenly began to laugh. Anger boiled in me as I watched the idiot before me laugh like I just said some kind of joke. "Are you stupid, mister?" "You don't understand the language," I asked before I could hold back. My insides boiled as I glared at him. How dare they make a fool out of me? "You still have the mouth to talk despite being at our mercy?" he asked me, and I rolled my eyes. "Do you know who I am? Do you know what my father can do to you if he gets his hands on you bastards?" I yelled, not minding if they had a silver blade with them. I wasn't scared of anyone anymore. The 3 laughed again on hearing my words. The anger I felt doubled at their laughter. Why were they laughing like I said something funny? Tessira Gridshade really lives up to her reputation. She dares to threaten armed men while at their mercy. "Isn't that a joke?" he asked his men, and they bursted out laughing again, shaming me on the spot. "Do you know what I can do to you if I leave here?" I went ahead to ask, a smirk on my face as I watched them with a darkened gaze. Oh shit. "I'm so scared. Tessira would kill me if she gets her hand on me," the leader mocked, as he rubbed his arm in a shivering way. A small smile spread across his face as he shook his head. "You're one funny bitch I've ever come across." "Who the hell are you calling a bitch?" I yelled, standing up from the chair and glaring at him further. "It's not about standing and glaring. I could cut your wings right now and have you crashing to the ground in pain," he warned. The smile on his face disappeared as it was replaced with a level of seriousness I hadn't seen before. Do you know what I'm about to do to you? He asked, taking 2 steps closer to me. I shifted subconsciously, and he smiled. You want to run? She wants to run. They laughed loudly again, and I froze on the spot. My glare intensified. Run? I would never run from a moron, I yelled out, lifting my chin and staring at him in disdain. Surprise flashed in his eyes as he heard my words, and I did a happy dance in my head, knowing I might have scared him for a split second with my height. Okay, then let's get to the reason I brought you here, he said, and before I knew it, another set of guards walked in with a box, placing it on the table before me. This is my playbox, Tasira, the psycho said, and gestured to the box. Tie her up. At those words, I watched in horror as the guards came to hold me down. I struggled, calling them all sorts of names and struggling to push them away. But at the end, I was tied back to the chair. You assholes. How dare you touch me? I yelled as the tears began to fall from my eyes. The leader smiled and said, Let me show you what assholes do to bitches like you. He then turned to another guard who suddenly brought out a phone. Is the camera rolling? He asked, and the guard gave a nod. Then I realized what was going on. Oh no. Cat's POV. What are you doing here? I heard Erika's voice the moment we heard footsteps descending down the staircase. We all turned to see the look on her face, one that showed she wasn't a bit happy seeing Gridshade here in the pack house again. Gridshade stood up to his feet, and without even acknowledging Erika's presence, he went ahead to ask, Where is Jace? Erika smirked and descended to the last step. What do you want? Where is Jace? He is the only one I came to see. Erika raised a brow and smiled. Look, Gridshade. Just because you're close to Jace doesn't give you the right to come here and ask for him. Tell me what you want from Jace. Finally, Gridshade put aside his ego and walked forward to where Erika stood. Take a look at this photos, he said, and as he showed her another set of photos on his phone. There was also a video, I guess, because I heard voices coming from the phone. Photos couldn't talk, at least. Erika shut her eyes and opened them as if the sight was horrific. Then she looked up at I and Paula, who kept watching her expectantly. Come over, girls. She finally called and we both made our way towards her. She turned the phone to show us the video, and there was saw Tasira being tied to a chair in what seemed like an interrogation room. A black cloth was used to cover her face as they dumped what seemed like cold water on her face. I winced internally at the pains that must have assaulted her. That was a deadly torture out there. That wasn't enough. They also soaked her with lots of water and electrocuted her. But the voltage seemed low. They were torturing Tasira that bad, and I couldn't tell the feeling I felt. I felt bad for her and wouldn't want her to experience such. I turned to look at Gridshade and saw a tear slip from his eyes as he watched his beloved daughter been tortured like a lowly animal. This is bad. They might kill her. Paula voiced out and everyone nodded in agreement. We turned to Rika, who stood there quietly as if calculating something. We'll save her, she announced, and we all let out sighs of relief. Gridshade's face lit up as he asked again. I need to tell Jace about it so that he see. We're not telling Jace anything. Erika suddenly cut him shut. None of you will tell Jace a thing about all these. Why? Gridshade asked before any other person could ask. His gaze had already darkened as if a storm was coming. Jace just recovered, and I can't let him get involved in anything that would cost his health again. She glared at him as she said those words. What do you even mean? My daughter could be killed at any time. That is why I'm generous enough to want to help. Send these videos to me and I'll send out men to find her, Rika said to him, and he blinked in unbelief. For some reason, I supported Erika's decision, but I also have to help Jace achieve his goal. I was stuck in between the rock and the hard place. Erika, what the hell do you even mean? Gridshade yelled again, his eyeballs almost popping out of their sockets. I will say it again. Jace's health is my #1 priority, and I will never let you or anyone harm him." "How am I harming him?" Elder Gridshade asked in shock. "By bringing such things to him, it's harm," she replied. "You have just 2 options to choose from. It's either you accept my help of sending out men to find your daughter, or just leaving my pack house. Jace can't die for you all." "Rika, calm down." "Don't tell me to calm down. This people didn't know how Jace struggled to stay alive. Where were they when we saved Jace and almost lost our lives?" Rika was really pissed this time as she yelled that out. Now they all come here when they're in trouble to call the same injured person they didn't know what happened to. We all watched her as she watched Elder Gridshade, who didn't have any other words to say. Erika was right. No one was there to take care of Jace. They weren't there when we suffered to get him from that forest. No one was there indeed. Gridshade stood for a while as steam practically came out of his ear while he watched Erika with a silent hatred flashing in his eyes. "Fine then. If that's how it is now, then I'll leave," he said, and without warning turned around to walk out of the room. Erika rolled her eyes and turned to go back upstairs. I watched between her and Elder Gridshade, then decided that I would help Jace instead of my best friend. Without warning, I sprinted out of the living room, going after Elder Gridshade that was about to get into his car. "Elder Gridshade, wait." I called out to him, and he stopped thankfully. "Elder Gridshade, can you give me those photos again?" Elder Gridshade gave me a narrowed look and asked, "Why do you want them?" Elder Gridshade asked, and I sighed. "I'm Jace's mate, so of course I support him, and we're looking for Tassira, so we need every lead we could find." Gridshade sized me up and finally nodded before handing them over to me finally. Noir's POV. "You really won't let this matter go, will you?" Mother asked me again as we made our way into the courtyard. She had a dark look on her face as she watched me, waiting for a satisfying response from me. "Mum, I made Erika a promise," I replied, trying to make her understand my point. But I think her mind was already made up. She just wanted the Moonforest Pack degraded to nothing by me. Alex had stepped on my mother's toes the moment his people did what they did. I wasn't even that offended, but Mother was overly pissed and made me promise that I would punish the entire Moonforest Pack for what happened. Despite killing the main culprits, Mother still insisted on having the head of the Moonforest Pack Alpha brought to her. Yes, she was that ruthless. So what if you made her a promise? Promises are meant to be broken, she said to my surprise, and I sighed at those words. Promises are meant to be broken? Mother was being unreasonable. If I break the promise I made to Erika, that was equivalent to losing her to that Alex. So what if she hates me? I asked in turn, and she chuckled. "You talk like you aren't my son, Noir Heart," she yelled back, taking a seat and gesturing for me to take the other seat. Erika is the ruler of the Ironclaw Pack, and in order to have this pack strengthened, we need her. You have to marry her at all costs, so I understand why you're reluctant about going after Alex. Mother paused as she received the drink brought forward by one of the maids. "Don't worry about getting Erika and she getting mad at you. I'll handle that," she finished and took a gulp of the wine. I raised a questioning brow at her and asked, "And how do you intend to do that?" She sighed and shook her head like I was some kind of fool who didn't understand things. "I want the Moonforest Pack brought to ruins, and in order for that to happen, we need to take their alpha down." "Wait, you want me to kill Alex?" I asked in disbelief at this woman's words. She shrugged and gave a nod. "He's a threat to you, both in terms of getting Erika and in terms of building this pack. If Alex gets to Erika first, you'd lose a lot. We'd lose a lot. So we'll come up with something, a bigger excuse to actually go all out in destroying the Moonforest Pack. Don't worry, Erika wouldn't have a say in it, since there would be a crime and strong evidence." I sighed, leaning back in my chair as her words registered in my mind. For some reason, I felt that my mother had an unknown rift with the Moon Forest Pack. There had to be a reason why she wanted the pack to go down that bad. Mother, tell me, why do you want the Moon Forest Pack wiped out so soon? I ask, unable to hold the curiosity in. She laughed and shook her head. Noah, I can't tell you now, but all I can say is the former alpha of that pack did something wrong that his entire pack has to pay for. I raised a brow in surprise. So the late alpha was actually the cause of this, and now his entire pack has to pay for it. But still, I just couldn't find it in me to break the promise of giving Alex some days to provide who I already killed. For some odd reason, I felt that the ones I killed weren't the main culprits. There was someone else out there, and I just wanted to get my hands on them. If I could succeed in getting my hands on that person, I promise never to let that person go. So, Noir, don't worry about Erika. Even if you break the promise, we'll still find a way to make you look good before her. All you need to put more effort into is making her fall in love with you. If she can fall for you, then all will be in smooth motion. How am I even supposed to do that? Erika is stubborn and strong-willed. She doesn't want to fall in love. I gritted out. The image of Erika being so distant and dominant each time came flooding my mind. She definitely wasn't the type to fall easily. What do you mean, strong-willed? That is the reason why you have to get close to her. Always go to her pack. Initiate outings, dinner dates and all. Women like men who do these things. She explained with a smile, and I frowned. Would Erika be as petty as other women who liked these sorts of petty things? Currently, she has issues she is sorting, and I don't think I'll take her on any date. Good gracious. This child. This is the perfect opportunity for you to actually be by her side and offer her your assistance. You should be there for her in times like this. That way you'll earn her love quickly. Mother yelled, and I sighed with a nod. That means I'll visit her tomorrow. I voiced out and heard her hum of approval. Then we'll go over Alex's matter? Yes, soon. We'll do that soon. I stood up to my feet, about to walk into the mansion when she stopped me again. Noir, one more thing? What is it? I asked in return. Tomorrow, when you go to see Erika, buy her roses. Don't go visiting on an empty hand. She warned with a serious look in her eyes. I nodded, and before she could come up with any other thing she needed me to get for Erika, I turned and walked out of the room. This was it. It was time to make Erika mine and take Alex out of the picture. Hopefully, things will go smoothly and fast. Alex's POV. I had just dropped the call with Gage when a knock came at the door to the room. Come in, I called, and the door was pushed open, revealing Siren dressed exquisitely. I raised a brow at the sudden attire while she smiled at me. Come to think of it, it had been so long since I last saw Serenity. She had just been going on and off for a while now, never at home and always busy. I wasn't complaining though, considering that she had her own life to live and she had her own things to deal with. Alex, she whined, the usual whining she added each time she called out my name. You don't look happy to see me. She pouted and strolled into the room. She clapped her hands softly, and a maid came in carrying a tray of different meals in tow. I brought you food. She smiled and gestured for the maid to place the tray on the table. Once the meal had been placed on the table, she dismissed the maid and the maid left. She turned to me again and wiggled her eyebrows, suddenly also making me smile at the cute gesture. I said to treat you to a meal today, since I'm always busy running errands for myself and not having time for us anymore. For some reason, the way she said it made me cringe inside, but smiled at her. From today, I'll be taking care of your meals, she added and began to set the meal before me, adding the essentials, and everything she knew I liked. Alex, say something and stop staring. She quipped with a blush, and I blinked, realizing that I had been staring at her for a very long time. What's up with you? You look lost. I'm fine, just stressed. I replied, and she raised a brow at me. Oh, you're stressed. Then that's good. There's a party coming up in 2 days. I'm taking you along, she said and beamed at me. I scrunched my face up at the party and sighed. It's been such a long time I had such outings with Saren, so I guess it wouldn't be a bad idea to actually go out and unwind for a while. Fine, we'll go to the party in 2 days. Who's the celebrant? A high school friend of mine. He just returned from abroad. Oh, I drawled, and she nodded. Now open wide. She chided, and I felt slightly uncomfortable having her feed me the meal. It's fine. I'll eat myself, I began to say, but was rudely interrupted by her. We haven't seen each other for a while now, and this is like the only chance for us to actually bond again. Let me treat you well. You might never get this chance again. I frowned at the last part. What did she mean by that? I watched her face and the look that flashed in her eyes. Saren was hiding something from me. She definitely wasn't telling me something. What do you mean by that? I asked her, trying to get the reason behind that statement. She blinked, her expression going back to the blank, unreadable one she always had on her face. Oh, I mean to say that we might not have this chance again because you would soon be occupied by the pack's duties, and I will be occupied by my own things, she explained, but still my heart felt she was lying. It felt odd, but I couldn't push it too far. I let her feed me the meal one after the other until I couldn't eat any more of it. That's enough. I waved a hand to stop her from feeding me any more of the meal. She nodded and set the plates aside. I'm glad I could do this for you. I see the stress you keep going through all these while, and I feel that you need this rest, she said, a sudden, genuine look in her eyes. All suspicions I had just now about her disappeared, replaced with a soft look of appreciation. Here I was suspecting her for nothing actually, and she was thinking of my health, even bringing me food. What about you? Have you had anything to eat? I asked her, and she shook her head. I suddenly don't have an appetite to eat anything. I prefer feeding you the meal instead, she said, and I nodded. Just try to eat something before you leave. By the way, where do you always go off to each time? I stylishly asked, and I saw her freeze. The suspicion was back again. Oh, I got this job that I'm doing. I'll tell you about it when we bond again, she said, and extended a hand to touch my face. For now, I'll just continue the job, and I love it so much, she added playfully, pinching my chin softly. If that's all for now, I'll get going, she said, and gathered the plates. See you later, Alex. She strutted out of the room, leaving me to watch the imaginary afterimage I thought she left behind. Don't you think she is acting very strange? I asked Elijah, and he hummed. She is acting strange. You know I never liked this serenity right from the very day Mate left this house, he added, and I winced internally at being reminded of how Erika had been the Luna of this pack. Now she was the alpha of the #1 pack, and a ruthless one at that. She was now so distant that not just anyone could get to her. I'm even grateful she didn't lock me up and punish me for my actions back then. She seemed nicer to me. Mate is very kind. Elijah, stop calling her our mate. We can't mate her anymore. She is now unreachable and untouchable. I sighed and relaxed in my seat. My heart suddenly clenched as the memories of how I had treated her came flooding in. If only I could get a second chance from her, I would gladly right my wrongs and claim my Luna again. Jace's POV. I went through the photos Kat had brought in earlier, saying it was from Gridshade. Even though I and Tassira had nothing together, I couldn't deny the pain I felt on seeing her go through the same brutality I went through. I could remember vividly how I was treated even worse than a dog by those people. They did everything to break me, but I guess I had a strong wolf even though I wasn't an alpha. Tassira's wails and screams for help really got to my heart, and for a moment my heart went out to her. I felt pity for her. Why are they treating her this way? Kat's voice suddenly pulled me out of my train of thoughts as I looked up at her. I shook my head, not even knowing what to say. I don't know. It's as if she did something wrong and they're punishing her for it. But why would they threaten her father with it? Kat asked, making a point with her words. Indeed, if Tassira really offended those people, why would they send pictures to her father and tell him to present himself as exchange? Things weren't making sense to me, and I felt my mood go off. Or did Gridshade do something wrong to them? I asked her this time. I just loved how we both, I and Kat, reasoned so well. She nodded and said, "This is actually a reasonable explanation on why, so I'll pick this one." I sighed, running a hand through my hair as I just stared down at the videos and photos. We really need to save her, or they might kill her. You can't get involved. Kat chimed in immediately, her eyes darkening. What do you mean? I asked her as well, my face devoid of any emotion. Erika has a reason for keeping this away from you, and I'm not about to endanger you by letting you take this on your own, she said, and sat before me. A worried look appeared on her face as she extended a hand to touch my face, as usual. I moved back, away from her touch, and I glared sightly at her. I'm not doing this because I love Tassira, in case that's what you have in mind. I'm doing this because of Gridshade, I said to her, and I saw the look of relief that flashed in her eyes. So I would advise you to not hold me back. You don't want to lose your mate, do you? I threatened, and she gulped. Jace, don't threaten me with that, her voice broke, telling me that I had hurt her with the words I just said. I smiled thinly and extended a hand to snake it around her neck, and without warning, I pulled her in for a kiss. She froze at first, but I reciprocated as I didn't pull away. When I finally pulled away, she stared at me wide-eyed. What? You won't lose your mate, but that is if you're cooperative, I assured her, and I saw her nod. All right, I'll be cooperative. She finally relented, and I pulled her in for a hug. I wasn't supposed to do this, but Kat left me with no choice the moment she prohibited me from helping Tassira because Erika refused. And of course I wouldn't reject her because of that. I just wanted to scare her, make her feel fear for once, and also make me see the true feelings she had for me. I need to leave, I drawled, and she raised a brow. Don't tell me you're going to save her now? Without a well-proofed plan? She asked seriously, and I shook my head with a laugh. Hell no. I want to head to the hospital. My wolf is healing me slowly, and I need to visit the doctor for one thing, I explained, and she sighed in relief. I smiled and ruffled her hair as I stood up to my feet and headed for the bathroom. Well, I didn't lie about seeing the doctor, but I also wanted to see Fagel. It had been so long I last saw him, and I needed to know exactly what he had to tell me. He should have recuperated well enough after so long. After I stepped out of the bathroom, I saw Kat still seated on my bed, and I raised a brow. You're still here? I want to go to the hospital with you, she said, and I sighed. No, you can't go. Let's go downstairs together, but I can't take you to the hospital with me. She pouted and sighed. Fine. Let's go downstairs. You'll watch me change? I asked with a raised brow, and she blushed. I don't mind. And her flirty side was back again. Before, I would shy away from it, but not anymore. I moved to my wardrobe and picked out a white shirt and black pants. Keep your eyes on me, I ordered, and she smirked. Her eyes fixed on me as I pulled my t-shirt over my head. I saw her blink on seeing my bare body, and I slowly put on my white shirt, still making sure my gaze held hers. Just as I reached for my pants, Kat suddenly yelped and buried her face into the pillow. Damn! The room was suddenly filled with the sound of my laughter as I laughed at my silly mate's actions. Now I accept. Kat was the only mate I would ever want for me. No one else, not in this life or the next. It her and me. Jace's POV. I walked downstairs with Kat and found Erika seated by the wine bar in the living room. Seeing me all dressed up and ready to leave, she narrowed her eyes and jumped down from the stool she was seated on. "Where are you off to, mister?" she asked, standing before me with a raised brow and her hands on her waist. I ran a hand through my hair and smiled. "To the hospital." "Why do you need to go there? We can just have the doctor come over," she suggested, clearly not wanting me to leave the house. But I needed to see Fagel. I needed to discuss things with him. I had a feeling that he had something good to tell me. But I just can't tell Erika all of these. I don't want the doctor coming over like I'm some kind of alpha king. "You're I and Father's alpha king? Is that enough?" she asked and placed her hand on my shoulder. "I'm sorry for being this way, but I can't have anything happening to you again." "Nothing will happen. I understand that you might be worried," I replied, and she sighed. "How long will you take?" "About 2 hours." "2 hours?" she yelled and turned to look into my eyes. I smiled and cocked my head to the side. "Why? You can't live without me." "Erika, remember that I'm not your mate, but your brother," I said with a chuckle, and she playfully nudged me. "I know that, silly. Now get lost from here before you think I plan on marrying you too, gross?" "Gross," I chanted after her, scrunching my face up in disgust, and Kat laughed at our childish attitude. I breathed out a sigh of relief once I got into the awaiting car. Again, Erika insisted I take 2 guards along. They drove me away from the pack house and straight to the infirmary. Since Fagel had healed up, it was time to tell me what he might know. The ride to the hospital took about 10 minutes because the driver drove carefully and steadily. I got down the moment they pulled up in the driveway and pulled the car door open for me. I made my way into the huge building and directly to the doctor's office. For some reason, I had this feeling that I was being followed, but each time I turned to check, there's literally no one behind me. I just hoped it wasn't one of those anonymous organizations again. I walked into the office to see the doctor focused on something before him, looking confused as hell. "Your Highness, you're here," he said the moment he saw me walk in. I smiled, extending a hand for a handshake. "Hello, Doc. How are you?" I replied, taking a seat as well. "I'm all right. It's good to see you looking sound and healthy." "Well, I wouldn't say healthy, but thanks to the goddess." He chuckled at my words and gave a nod. "I'm here to see Fagel. Could you please take me to him?" I asked, going straight to the point and not beating around the bush. He nodded and stood up. "Yes, please." I stood up as well, following him as we left the office and straight towards Fagel's hospital room. When we arrived, Fagel had his eyes closed. He opened them up the moment he heard us enter the room. Seeing me, Fagel's eyes lit up in excitement. "Your Highness," he called out, sitting up into a sitting position. I returned the smile with mine and strolled further into the room. "Thanks, Doc. You may leave." I dismissed the doctor, and he left. "Fagel, how are you?" I asked, taking a seat beside his bed. "I'm all right. How about you? You're healed up?" he asked, and I raised a brow. The doctor informed me. I nodded, then shrugged. "I'm fine now." "That's good to hear," he said, and sighed. "I've just been here, but hoping to come back soon. I missed the entire Ironclaw Manor." I watched Fagel lament and almost laughed at the pained look in his eyes. "You'll return soon, but first let's talk about why I'm here." The Alpha gave me not more than 2 hours to return to the pack house. He raised a brow and laughed at those words. "All right, I also have a few things to tell you." "See? I was right about him having something to tell me. These past few days have been really rough, you know," I began, and he sighed. "I was injured and hospitalized. Someone tried to poison me with the same orchid as Dad." Fagel gasped in shock, and I nodded. "Yes, it's the truth. They came after me even in the hospital," I said, and sighed this time. Fagel watched me with a pained expression and nodded. So tell me what you have for me, I urged, and he sighed heavily. So even though I had been hospitalized here, I still had to make some findings. On the day I woke up, someone came into my ward dressed as a nurse. At first, I noticed her suspicious movements and I had to confront her while holding a scissors to her neck. Then she went ahead to spill the truth that she was on the run and in disguise. I blinked at that information. All right, go on. It turns out that her family was massacred by this organization with the same locket as the one we know, he explained, and I raised a brow. Organization? Yes, the one with the locket. He reminded me again, and I nodded. But why did she come here? Why was she telling you? I asked, confused, and Fagel nodded. She wants me to help her get revenge against them. So I asked her if she perhaps knew the person behind all these. She said she didn't, and told me that the only information she had was that the organization was related to the Wren family in Avenir City. The Wren family? Avenir City? Jace's POV. The Wren family? Avenir City? Yes, Avenir City, he confirmed, and I frowned. Avenir City was another huge city outside Fangoria, a city that could rival Fangoria as well. It was also very far from Fangoria, and just thinking about the distance brought me a headache. So, did you ask someone to check for the family? I asked instead, still rubbing my head at this information. Fagel shook his head. I did ask someone to check, but the person returned with bad news, which is, the name Wren is extremely common in Avenir City. That means that there are lots of families with this name. In total, there are 82 families with the family name Wren. What the heck? I yelled out at the amount of families bearing that family name. You see why I got tired. Fagel sighed with a chuckle. I ran a hand through my hair in frustration as well. How would we ever find the Wren family involved in the shady acts? Why don't you call the nurse over? Let's ask more questions about the Wren family she was referring to, I suggested, but Fagel winced for some reason. Unfortunately, the nurse is dead. What? This time, I stood up from my seat in shock as those words registered in my mind. The person was even dead? Could this life get any less difficult? Then how do we identify this particular Wren family? I asked, as I felt my heartbeat accelerate. Honestly, I have no idea. I asked someone to check all Wren families out to know the one having a suspicious activity ongoing. But out of the 82 families, 15 are the top most powerful families, which are the ones I've asked him to look into. He explained, and I yawned, leaning back into my seat. This is going to be very difficult, you know? I asked, already feeling exhaustion kicking in. He nodded and relaxed as well. Indeed. We stayed silent for a while before he gave a suggestion. Why don't we find a way to visit Avenir? I gave him a pointed look before shaking my head. Yes, we can visit Avenir, but definitely not now, I replied. Why not? Because I have a sister who is hell-bent on keeping me safe. I'm not even allowed to leave the manor for more than 2 hours, and you think I can travel to Avenir that is at least 28 hours away from Fangoria by air? Fagel bursted out laughing at the tone I used in lamenting. But it was the truth. Rika wouldn't even let me leave the house and to the hospital for more than 2 hours. So how in the world would she ever let me be out of Fangoria for 28 hours? The Alpha is so caring, I'm not surprised. He laughed. I let out a tired sigh and shook my head. I just wanted all these to end as soon as possible and live well with everyone at least. I already made a promise to myself that if eventually all these ended, I would get married to Kat and start building a family. But Your Highness, the Alpha is doing this to keep you safe, he said, and I glared at him. The Alpha seems to always forget who's older between us. I should be the one looking out for her, and not the other way around. But she acts like I would die if I even stepped a foot into the courtyard. Again, Fagel bursted out laughing. This time I joined him in the laughter. Erika was such a character, but like Fagel said, she cared for my well-being. Losing our both parents and me would kill her, so I understood where her fear came from. After the laughter had died down, Fagel's face turned serious. In 2 days' time, I'll return to the pack house, and we'll talk about this Wren family again. Should the Alpha know about the Wren family? I shook my head, saying no. If Erika found out about the family, she would go after them personally. That would mean war. Even though the Ironclaw Pack was the biggest in the city, it couldn't rival the whole of Avenir. We'll be crushed even before we know it. I wanted to laugh at these thoughts, but held it in. We can't let Rika find out about the Wren family. She'll act impulsive, I said calmly to Fagel, and he gave a nod. I understand, Your Highness. The Alpha would rather take the harm for you than risk you, he pointed out, which I nodded towards again. Just bear in mind when you return. I'll finish up the plan of bringing Tessira, and we'll talk about Avenir City visit afterwards. I explained. 2 hours was almost over now. Fagel frowned at my words. Tessira? Tessira Gridshade? He asked, and I nodded. What happened? He asked again, and I shrugged. Tessira was kidnapped, and I just confirmed it was the same people who took me the first time that took her this time. What? They kidnapped her? He still went ahead to ask after I had told him the truth. Yes, she was kidnapped. A few days ago, she had attended a party after her father asked her not to attend. On her way back from the so-called party, she got abducted by the organization. Fagel gasped in shock on hearing my words. He watched me with eyes filled with pity. Stop staring at me like I was the one kidnapped, I snapped, and he raised his hand in surrender. But no matter what, she needs to be saved. Yes, she needs to be saved indeed. We'll go over that plan when next I visit this hospital. For now, I'll be taking my leave before my sister sends the entire Fangoria of me. All right, Your Highness. I'll see you in 2 days' time when I return to the pack house. I nodded and directly made my way out of the room. Just like I said before, I felt someone's gaze on me. I instinctively turned to that direction. Then I saw a figure move, dressed in black. Erika's POV. A knock came at my door and I looked up from the papers in my hand. Being an alpha was one hell of a responsibility, and I was trying my best to get my way around it. The door was pushed open and a maid walked in with a glass of water. I smiled at her and received it from the tray she was holding. This made me remember Melissy again. Alpha, the Alpha of the Thunderclaw Pack, Alpha Noir Heart, is here, she said with a bow, and I raised my brow in surprise. Noir is here? She nodded. What for? That, I do not know, she said honestly, and I dismissed her to leave immediately. I got up from my sitting position and made my way out of the room, straight downstairs to know why Noir was here. I really don't like Noir, you know. Cindy suddenly whined as I climbed down the stairs. I paused in my tracks and smirked. You never like anyone. I'm not surprised, I replied, and she sighed. He likes you, she said, and I chuckled low. Hell no. It can't work between me and that man. Remember I had a contract with father? I reminded her, and she snorted. Still, your father isn't conscious now, and you might end up falling for that guy. I didn't reply to that, and just walked straight to the living room. Indeed, Noir was here, but his presence wasn't what caught my attention. What actually grabbed my entire attention was the bouquet of flowers in his hand. What does it mean when a man brings a woman? Flowers? I subconsciously asked Cindy, and she howled. That's a clear sign of love. Noir Heart is into you. She spat out in disgust, and I frowned. Did she hate Noir that much? I hate that guy so much. It's a deep hatred, too. I laughed at Cindy's words and just went forward towards Noir, who was now staring at me non-stop. Alpha Noir. I was first to call out to him, and his face lit up with a small smile. Please call me Noir. The usual way you always do, he said to me, the smile never leaving his face for once. All right, why are you here? I asked, going straight to the point. Oh, here. I came to see you, then I dropped by a flower shop and bought you this. He explained and handed me the bouquet in his hand. Honestly, I wanted to reject it, but I just couldn't. I and Noir had been friends since childhood, and he always bought me presents. I never once rejected any of them, and it would feel weird to do that now. Thank you, I beamed, accepting the flower he offered me. He smiled even more, seeing I had accepted his gift. Please take a seat. I gestured to a sit before him. It's good to see you. How are you? He asked the moment he sat still. I shrugged. I'm fine. Just here running the duties of the pack. I replied, and he laughed softly. It's what makes you an alpha. The duties of the pack. He quipped, earning and soft sighs from me. A maid came forward to receive the gift from me, take it to my bedroom. She nodded and walked off to the direction of my bedroom after I handed her the bouquet. You even plan to keep his gift in your room? Cindy scoffed. She was being hateful again, but I ignored her and turned to Noir again. Just as I opened my mouth to talk, the front door opened and in walked Tessira's father. He had a very exhausted look on his face, and he looked a mess. I lifted a brow, remembering that the guards which were sent out to look for Tessira hadn't returned. Greetings, Alpha Erika. He greeted politely, then turned to nod at Noir instead. Oh, what changed? His daughter being abducted? Welcome, Elder Gridshade. Take a seat, I said, gesturing to the seat in the room as well. He nodded and took a seat. I came on behalf of my Da. Honestly, Elder Gridshade, the guards sent to find Tessira haven't returned, and I'm afraid that might be a huge issue. I went ahead to say, my heart going out to him and Tessira. I waited for Gridshade to lash out as usual and curse at me. But after waiting for so long, nothing came. I blinked when he nodded his head pitifully. I guess I'll just do as told, he replied, and I frowned. You won't sacrifice your life. We'll find Tessira. Just be hopeful. I was encouraged. Just then again, the door was pushed open and the guards in charge of bringing Tessira walked in without her. Where is she? I asked. The leader bowed before giving a response. Alpha, we searched everywhere and couldn't find her. We've raked the city, turned everything upside down, but we still couldn't find her. He explained and lowered his head in shame. It's all right, but please don't stop the search for her. We need to find her before dusk, I ordered, and they bowed. Thank you, Alpha. Once they left, Noir pulled my attention to him. Rika, what's wrong? I blinked and sighed. Sighing has been a regular thing these days for us. Tessira, Elder Gridshade's daughter, was kidnapped. But we don't know the exact people responsible. At those words, Noir's eyes widened. What? Jace's POV. I stepped into the living room, just as I heard Noir Heart talking to Rika about Tessira. I walked forward, seeing he was actually here again. Gridshade was also around, and the moment he saw me, he stood up and ran up to me. Jace. I smiled at him, giving him a slight bow. Elder Gridshade. I shifted my gaze from Gridshade to Erika and Noir. Their eyes locked on me. You're late, Jace. Erika's voice rang out, and I let out a sigh, glancing at my wristwatch. It showed I was only 2 minutes past the planned 2 hours. I thought I did pretty well getting back quickly. It's just a couple of minutes, I pointed out. Erika wasn't having it. You still missed the time frame, she retorted, rising to her feet, her frustration evident. Erika marched over to me, standing before me with exasperation in her eyes. She reached out to check me over, making sure I was truly okay. I rolled my eyes playfully, a small smile tugging at his lips. You know I'm all right, Rika, I said teasingly, and she clicked her tongue adorably. You're not invincible. Who knows if you're hiding something again?" she murmured to my hearing, and I rolled my eyes at her. After she was done analyzing my entire body, checking for any hidden injuries, she breathed out a sigh of relief and beamed at me. "Come take a seat. Noir and I were talking about sending more men to go in search of Tessira," she explained, and I gave Noir a brief nod of acknowledgement. "Hello, Jace." He returned the greeting with words, and I smiled. "It's good to see you again, Noir," I replied exhaustedly, and sat beside Rika. Gridshade also returned to seat with us. For some reason, he had just been overly quiet and he looked a mess with those dark eyes bags. I really needed to speak to him in secret. I also needed to talk to Kat about my plans of heading out to save Tessira in 2 days' time. I knew the base where I was kept like the back of my hand. After the issue of Tessira is resolved, I would personally call Erika over and tell her about the anonymous Wren family. Noir wants to help in the search for Tessira, so he would be sending some of his men alongside mine to look for Tessira. Erika started again, and I nodded. "All right, that's good then." "Thank you so much, Noir," I said, flashing him a knowing smile and Gridshade also bowing in appreciation. "Can I have a word with you in private, Elder Gridshade?" I spoke up and stood up to leave. Gridshade nodded immediately and stood up to follow me out. Erika gave us a pointed look. I winked at her and walked forward, straight to the courtyard. Once we reached the courtyard, I sent the guards there away and gestured for Gridshade to take a seat before me. "Jace, is something wrong?" he asked impatiently. I shook my head, telling him nothing is wrong. "It's about Tessira. I plan to go get her in 2 days' time," I announced, and Gridshade's eyes went wide in shock. "What? You know where she is?" he asked in shock, and I nodded. I already confirmed it with my mate that the same people who took me were the same people who took Tessira. The symbol from those pictures of Tessira were enough to tell me where she is kept. Gridshade stood up to his feet in shock on hearing my words. His lips trembled as he stared at me. He blinked and nodded. "Thank you so much, Jace." "Shh. Keep it down, please," I said to him, and he nodded, sitting back down and shutting his mother immediately. I glanced over the entire place and nodded. "So, don't worry. I'll get back to you soon." With that, I stood up and walked out of the courtyard after he gave a nod. I made my way to my room, also fishing out my phone to call Kat. Still focused on my phone, I didn't even notice the figure before me, and in one swift motion, I was pulled into my bedroom and trapped on the door once it was closed. It was then I looked down to actually see Kat staring at me with a grin. "Looking for me?" she asked with a raised brow, a small smirk on her face as she ran a hand by the side of my face. I breathed out and nodded. "I was just about to call you," I replied, and she nodded. "I knew it. Tell me, what do you want?" "Discuss the plans of getting Tessira out," I replied, and she sighed. "Fine then, let's sit," she said, and pulled me to seat with her on my bed. Once we were seated, I ran a hand through my hair and began. "So, I spoke to Elder Gridshade just now, and I decided on going to get Tessira in 2 days' time." I pause, waiting for her usual lash out and how I should heal up first, but it never came. "Okay, that's better. Let's make the preparations, and I'm coming along," she voiced out, and I blinked. She agreed. "Just like that? Are you sure?" I asked again in disbelief, and she nodded. Of course. I saw Elder Gridshade's puffy eyes and how he looked. He misses his daughter quite a lot, she reasoned, and I swear I was touched by her words. She really knew how to be considerate and reasonable. I smiled at her when our gaze collided. "Come here," I called out, extending a hand to call her closer. She smiled and crawled up to me. I pulled her in for a hug, I muttered, dropping a kiss on her forehead, and she snuggled closer. Jace's POV. After we had analyzed the plans of saving Tessira, we now had to plan on taking Erika out of the house on that very day. If eventually I tried to leave the house when she was actually around, she would immediately want to know where I was heading. So in order to avoid that, we needed Erika out of the house at all costs. Just as I walked past the front porch, I heard a chuckle from the left, and then came Noir's voice as he was busily talking to someone over the phone. I wasn't the type to eavesdrop, but my curiosity got the best of me, and I paused to listen to his convo. I don't even know where to start from. How in the goddess's name am I supposed to ask Rika out on a date? I'm scared she might send me out of the pack house. I heard him say this to the other person on the phone. Instantly, an idea struck me and joy followed. I listened more as he also went ahead to say, "Will that work?" asking her bluntly. I chuckled to myself, the laughter sounding dark and making Thorin, my wolf, laugh. So apparently, Noir wanted to take Rika out on a date, and I needed her out of the house so badly. Even though I didn't quite like this guy, I was pretty sure he couldn't do anything to Rika. So in order for me to leave, I need Rika to leave. That leaves me with one decision. Help Noir get Erika to accept the date night. Seeing that he had finished the phone call, I purposely cleared my throat, trying to inform him that I heard his entire words with whoever it was just now. Noir jolted and gave me a surprised look, then a smile making its way to his face. "Jace," he called out, walking towards me. I smiled back. "I'm sorry that I heard your conversations just now." "You plan to take Rika on a date?" I asked him, wiggling an eyebrow, and he smiled sheepishly, also looking away. "She's tough. She might never agree," he replied, and my heart went out to him. Of course, Rika would refuse him. If I wasn't in a haste to send Erika out of the house, I would have as well asked her to reject Noir instantly. "Do you need help with her?" I asked calmly, and he turned to my direction in shock. "You're willing to help?" asked Noir, and I shrugged. Rika needs to have some fun sometimes, and I figured this would be the perfect opportunity, so yes, I replied. Lies. I was lying. Noir's smile intensified and his eyes shone brighter. "Thank you so much, Jace. This would be the best thing ever for me," he said cheerfully. I shrugged and said, "Just go ahead and ask her out for the date. I'll do the convincing," I assured, and he nodded fervently before walking into the mansion again. I grinned and fished out my phone to text Kat. But again, before I could type a message, she already appeared before me. "Just think of me, and I'll appear." A smirk made its way to my face, and I sighed. "Did you perhaps hear the convo between I and Noir?" I asked, and she shook her head. "Let's go upstairs and talk about it." She accepted, and I initiated the holding of hands as we made our way up the stairs and to my room as usual. Once we had settled into the room, I looked up at her and smiled. "So Noir wants to ask Rika out on a date." I accepted and offered to help in convincing her. I explained, and Kat frowned, a look of disgust flashing in her eyes. "Why would you accept?" she asked, and I chuckled. "Weren't you girls always rooting for her getting along with some other guy? Noir isn't bad, and he is an alpha too. He is our childhood friend. Feels weird to do shits with him," Kat said, and sat down. "She isn't doing anything with him. Chill." Kat's mind was really twisted. How could she think of Erika that way? You never know. Erika was once married, and of course, she had sex with Alex. She should definitely crave it again with how hot Noir looks. Kat? You. I made faces at her words and hurled a pillow in her direction as she chuckled and dodged them. "Don't make it look like I'm saying nonsense. You and I know that's true." Well, she wasn't lying. Dad went too far with the contract thingy and not letting Rika get married again too. Erika needed a man, and I knew she knew that too, even if she kept acting strong and invincible. But Noir as that man? It left a sore taste on my tongue. So, I'm only accepting this because of the mission we have planned out tomorrow. In order for me to leave this house, I need Erika out of this house. So that's why I will help Noir in convincing her about leaving. I explained my genius plan, and Kat nodded in approval. That's perfect. I'll help too. She accepted, and I smiled. She really was a happy helper. Right now, he is downstairs about to try his luck with her. If eventually she refuses, I'll convince her to accept for just a while. Tomorrow, once they both leave, we'll leave for the south as well, and return before they actually return as well. Kat nodded again, getting my words as I dished them out. After the agreement was made, Kat and I left the room and straight downstairs to see if Noir had done his own part of the deal. But just as we stood waiting for her response, the door opened and Alex walked in. Oh shit. Erika's POV. A frown appeared on my face as I watched Alex approach us. What exactly was he here for again? I already said it before. He and Noir could settle their issues anywhere that wasn't my pack. His gaze shifted from mine to Noir's, and then back to me. I raised a questioning brow. Stop there, Alpha Alex. He stopped, watching me with surprise in his eyes. I took a step forward. Why are you here? He just stared at me as if I'd just asked the question in a foreign language. I came to speak to you about something, if you don't mind. Alpha Erika, he said, and I replied immediately. I mind. Alpha Alex. You can't just walk into my pack house without calling to inform the pack staff that you would be arriving. And that call should be 2 days before your actual coming. I gritted out as I watched his expression contort into a painful one. Erika, leave, I yelled out, the frown never leaving my face. I would not appreciate just anyone making their way into my pack without my consent. For some reason, I just felt irked by Alex's presence in the pack house. He watched me with hooded eyes, and I narrowed my gaze at him. You don't want to leave? I asked calmly. Guards? The guards came running in instantly. With my gaze still on Alex's, I ordered. See Alpha Alex to the door, and without my consent. Don't let him into this pack ever again, I ordered, and they nodded. Alex watched me in shock, and the guards walked up to him. Erika, you didn't even want to hear what I have to say. I won't leave until you hear me out, he yelled, and I raised a brow. You don't want to leave? I questioned. He shook his head, swatting the hands of the guards away from touching him. I nodded with a smile. Noir, I accept your proposal for the date night. I'll see you at whatever time you choose. I spat out and turned to walk back upstairs. Erika, wait. Alex yelled out behind me, but I ignored him and made my way to my bedroom. Because I let him in the first and second time, it didn't mean that I would gladly accept him each time he strutted into my pack house. I would greatly appreciate the notice of his pending visit first, before his actual arrival. That was unexpected, Cindy voiced out as I walked into my bedroom. How is it unexpected? I asked in return, pulling the wardrobe open. The fact that you asked the guards to send him away. I've been waiting for the day you would at least grow some balls and send him out. He shouldn't be seen around you, she explained, and I rolled my eyes. Just a few days ago, she felt for Alex and would have even convinced me to take him back. But now she spoke about him like he was some thief. Keep the attitude, Alpha, I said, my voice tinged with a hint of sarcasm as I picked out the perfect dress. Alex was a big jerk. I drawl, and she affirmed. Yes, he is a jerk. I said nothing more to Cindy and just made my way to the bathroom for a bath. By the time I returned to the room, a maid was already awaiting me by my bedside. Alpha Noir says to be ready in 2 hours. She informed me, and I nodded. Thank you. Please call Kat for me. She gave a slight bow before walking out of the room. I got dressed in a simple home outfit and sat on my bed. The awaited knock on the door soon came in. Come in. Kat walked into the room, a small smile on her face. Kat, come take a seat while I ask you a question. I gestured to the chair just beside my bed. She nodded and took the seat. Yes. What happened? I see just how you sent Alpha Alex away. She laughed. I sighed and leaned on the headboard. Firstly, I think he deserved it. Then secondly, what do you think about Noir? At that question, a small frown appeared on her face. I thought maybe it was disapproval and I bit my lower lip. He is our childhood friend, and you spent most of the time with him. You should know him better than I do. She explained, and of course she was right about the fact that I and Noir were closer back in the days. So, you think it's all right to go on a dinner date with him? I asked anxiously, and she shrugged again. It's not bad. It's just a dinner date. I nodded again. She was right. It wasn't like I accepted to marry him. I only accepted to go on date with him. I nodded and took a deep breath. So, I should be fine, right? She nodded in confirmation. The contract with Father still stands, staying away from all men. Is there anything else you would want to know? She asked me, and I shook my head. No, that's all, thank you. She nodded and stood up to leave the room. And, she paused, good luck on your date night? Thanks, I returned as I watched her nod and leave the room, now leaving me alone. Hopefully, I don't regret this decision. If Alex hadn't come here, I would never have agreed. You already accepted, you just have to go with it. Cindy chimed in. I lay still on the bed, going through my phone and awaiting the time. Soon, 2 hours passed, and I got dressed in a white dress and silver silhouette. Once I felt I was ready to leave the comfort of my home, I walked out of the room to meet Noir. So, at 6 p.m., I left my pack house. Cat's POV. Are they gone? I asked Jace the moment he walked back into the room. He gave a nod, saying they had left. We both wore matching black outfits, just the ones hitmen tended to wear. Let's go, he said, and turned to walk out of the room. I gulped and called out to him. He paused, then turned to look at me. Yes, what's wrong? He questioned, taking a step closer, and I sighed. Are you sure about this? I suddenly blurted and out, and he raised a brow. You're feeling reluctant now that the plan's been set in motion? He asked in surprise, and I shook my head slightly. It's not that, it's just, what if we don't succeed? I mean, why should it be at night? I asked again, giving him the usual look that always shows up when I get worried about anything. Kat, this is when Erika left the house. She left at night. Also, we've already planned all these, and we can't just back down now. Don't worry about anything. I'll protect you, all right? He reassured me, and I breathed out. I guess I have no choice but to agree. I nodded as he pulled me out of room and straight downstairs. Thankfully, Paula had gone back to the shadowed moon pack with Gage, so the house seemed empty, except the guards. You all come forward. Jace called for the guards and the maids. They all came running forward, and he went ahead to explain. We're about to step out for a while, and we'll be back before the Alpha returns, he said, and everyone hummed. Actually, if the Alpha returns before us, tell her we'll be back in no time. That's all. Got it? He asked, and they all bowed. Back to your duties. Thank you. The guards and maids went back to their duties as requested, and Jace pulled me out of the living room and straight outside. There were already 4 guards awaiting us as we emerged. You 3 would take the black car over there, and I will take this black one over here. Get in, he said, his usual deep voice making my own toes curl. The guards walked to their own car and got in, while Jace pulled me to sit in our own car too. Once we had settled in, he started the car and drove off immediately. Whatever we were doing needed to be hurried. Erika and Noir could return at any time. We drove through the city, admiring the beauty of Fangoria at night. I was anxious for some reason, and felt a bit scared. I was even fidgeting with my gloves as the car maneuvered the traffic lights. The other car followed behind us as we kept going. Jace knew the place better than us, though I remembered that it was close to the South Side River. We drove for what seemed to be hours, and soon, Jace stopped the car. Why are we stopping? I asked, confused, and he sighed. I felt a slight discomfort at my sides, so I paused for a while. I frowned at those words. He wasn't healed up yet, and he wanted to go for a rescue mission? Are you kidding me? I yelled out, and he covered his ears. I'm sorry, all right? He said softly, trying to breathe through before he opened his eyes and nodded. Jace, let's turn around. You need to get to the hospital, I suggested, but he glared at me. Do you know how far we've come? You want to go back? He asked in anger, and I shut my mouth immediately, not even daring to make a sound. He said nothing more and just started the car again. Once he drove off, the other car with the guards followed immediately. They must have wondered why their boss stopped. Their boss was a crazy man, by the way. The drive was silent, with each of us trying to avoid each other. Jace had on a poker face as he drove, while I stared out the window. Fighting with Jace wasn't what I always loved doing, but I hated how he always never listens to me each time I try to care for him. He was just so unpredictable most times. One minute, he would be sweet and lovable. The next minute, he becomes a different person. Jace was just so unpredictable and annoying. Finally, we hit the familiar road of the south side and then came to a stop at the corner. This is where I'll have to trek from, he announced as he removed his seatbelt. I sighed, knowing it was the truth. Let's go, I said, and was just about to climb off the car when he suddenly called out to me. Where are you going? He asked, and I turned to look at him with a frown. I'm going with you, wasn't it what we agreed on? I asked, and Jace shook his head. Unfortunately, you can't go there with me. It's dangerous, he said seriously, and I shook my head. Hell no. Jace, I'm not about to leave you alone to go through such a dangerous mission alone. I snapped and glared at him. He sighed and shook his head. You really can't come. Just stay here and wait for us. Okay? I blinked in disbelief at those words. I stay here and wait? Hell no. Jace, please. I want to come along. Please take me. I pleaded, reaching out to take his hand in mine. Please. Cat, you can't come, and that is final. He gritted out and climbed out of the car. I got down as well and tried to run to where he stood, but two of the guards held me back immediately. No, Jace, you can't go there alone. I yelled and thrashed around as one of the guards now held me, the other two going with Jace. Jace gave me a bitter smile and nodded. We'll be safe. Just stay calm and stay put, he said, and walked off with the other two guards. I screamed a lot, the uneasiness in my chest building up. But the next minute, the guard holding me hit my Aka point, and just like that, I blacked out. To Sierra's POV, I found myself frozen in place, deep in thought, trying to figure out my next move. It's as if my usual creativity hit a roadblock right when I needed it the most. Escaping from here is my top priority. The atmosphere here was really suffocating for me, and made my skin crawl with unease every time I looked around. A guard stood before me, unmoving, as I watched him closely. What exactly would it take to beat up this guard and escape from here? It would take the strength of an alpha. I sighed again, clicking my tongue as the face of my father flashed in my mind. Jace included. Who knew how he was faring at the moment? Just then, the door to the cell was pushed open and another bulky-looking guard walked in with a plate of food. I watched him closely, and I swear I saw the look that flashed in his eye when his gaze lowered to my thigh. Oh, he is the fucker type. With this thought etched in my memory, I reached out a hand, since it wasn't tied, to receive the meal from him. Also, I made sure my hand brushed softly on his as I looked him dead in the eye. Thank you, sir, I said in my softest voice. Fangoria acting classes are beginning to come in handy. I saw him tense up as he stared down at me with his mouth slightly open. I winked at him and averted my gaze to look down at the disgusting smelling thing offered as food. He watched me for a brief second, before turning to walk out of the cell and standing guard with the other guard outside. I held my breath as I tried to eat the meal again. I just had to, or else I might die. After taking a bite or two, I gagged low in my throat, also trying so hard not to throw up the entire meal. I frowned and set the food aside immediately, not even wanting to give that disgusting thing one more look. I sighed again and relaxed on the seat where I sat. Suddenly, I looked up to see that the guard was staring at me again. At first, my heart leaped in fear, but I bit down the nervousness and smiled thinly at him. Also, I tried to raise my skirt a bit, showing off my fair thigh. This was the worst insult of my life, but I also needed to escape from this damn place. The guard with him suddenly murmured something to the guard with the lustful gaze. Then he walked out, leaving me with that horny animal. I guess this was my chance. The guard glanced at me again. Then I used my index finger to call him over, winking at him and running my tongue over my upper lip. This was so fucking cringe, but I guess I could hold on for a while. The guard fell for it, and he directly pulled open the cell before walking in. A small smile appeared on his face as he watched me. "You're such a slut. I knew you were attracted to me too," he muttered with his gruff voice that felt painful to the ears. I smiled immediately, hiding the look of disdain I almost let out. "I love your physique. You're so huge, and I can't wait to see what's hidden down there," I said in a slow and soft voice. He smirked. "You ain't that bad either." I felt my blood run cold at that stupid remark. Me? Not that bad? Hey, idiot, I'm better than you. But I couldn't say that out loud as I masked my anger with a blinding smile, my gaze shifting from him to scan the room for any weapons I could use to get rid of this fool. Suddenly, he pulled me up roughly and I yelped. I looked into his red eyes. He was a smoker. "I have to warn you beforehand that I love being rough. I'm not slow or easy," he whispered as his hand came around my neck to choke me. I felt my insides churn in disgust as I felt his hand on my neck. If this had been Jace or any of my male friends, then I would not hesitate to give in. But a lowlife doing the choking? I felt anger build up in me and determination to leave this damn place grew stronger. If I eventually escape from here, I would make sure Father comes after all these bastards and make them pay for laying their filthy hands on me. Eyes on me, baby girl. Only the pet name he called me made my fist clench as if to punch and bruise those stupid lips of his. I looked into his eyes, but not after taking in the sight of a rod at the other side of the room, precisely where a table was also located. "We'll do this quickly, and no one has to know, all right? I'll make sure to try and lessen the torture you go through," he said softly, and I bit my lower lip. What a jerk. "Let's go over to that table," I said, and pointed towards the table where I saw the rod. He turned to look in that direction, then back at me, and a small smile appeared on his face. "You want to be bent over that table, don't you?" he asked, and I unwillingly nodded. "All right, let's go," he said, and pulled me to the table. Once we reached the old-looking table, he directly pushed everything aside and pushed me down to lie on my stomach. I felt tears stung my eyes, but I stilled my heart and reached out to grab the rod immediately. With the anger and the adrenaline pumping in my body, I turned sharply. The same money the fool reached for my skirt, and with everything in me, I hit him with the rod. He groaned and instantly let go of me. I took that as a closure to stab the sharp edge of the rod directly into his neck without mercy, leaving his blood splashing on my face and body. In this way, he wouldn't be able to scream for help and died on the spot. Seeing I had accomplished my aim of killing him, I threw the rod aside, my hands trembling as I ran to the exit. Thankfully, no one was in the hallways. I immediately pulled the keys from the guard and opened the cell gate. Finally, I will be free from here. Without a second thought, I ran out of the cell, taking my right as I ran without looking back. Thankfully, the bad wasn't so complicated, and I managed to find the exit gate in no time. Just as I reached the exit, a voice shouted from the side, and I froze. "Take one more step forward and you'd be dead." Jace's POV. This place isn't always heavily guarded, but there are some random traps here which you don't want to fall into, I said to the guards with me as we neared the familiar black gate of the base that once held me hostage in it. The guards nodded in understanding as we finally reached the gates. For some unknown reason, I just couldn't figure out why this place was never guarded so much. The trap can't be the only thing guarding this entire place, of course. There had to be something else guarding this place from intruders. Just as I reached for the gate, I heard the voice of someone, "Take one more step forward and you'd be dead." I frowned. Was this person referring to us? Had they already seen us approaching? That was bad. As we stood there frozen in our tracks, I suddenly heard a voice I never expected to hear. "Sir, please just let me go, please." Tassira? She was out here? If Tassira was out here, didn't it mean that she was just about to escape and was caught? The possibility of Tassira about to escape was low, but assuring. The voice asking her to stay put was deep and gruffy, definitely a huge guard. But it seemed to me that he was alone, giving us the perfect chance we needed. I turned to the guards who came with me and gave them a small nod. They understood the gesture, and without warning, they used their legs to push the gate open. We rushed in immediately. Thankfully, I asked the guards to come with firearms. In no time, we attacked and killed the guard. Because of the sound of the guns, the other guards began to rush forward. I cursed and ran towards Tassira to pull her out since she stood frozen there. The four of us ran out of the base and into the same forest where I ran into the first time I escaped from here. Tassira was looking behind us and panting non-stop, and the next minute, she screamed and pushed my body sideways, the bullet flying straight to her leg and piercing through. She yelped and fell to the floor hard. I paused in shock, turning to reach out to her. By now, she already began to wail loudly, and I cursed again. "Tassira, relax. You'll be fine. Stop screaming. Stop." I cooed, and she breathed in through her lips heavily, trying to bite down the pain she felt. "Call the others to come with the car," I yelled, and the guards nodded. One of them fished out his phone to do the phone call and afterwards returned to inform me that he already called them. Without warning, I listed Tassira bridal style as we sprinted towards the other side where the car would be waiting. Finally, we saved Tassira. One problem had successfully been sorted out, and I would face the other one later. We ran faster than usual, and thankfully, when we arrived at the side of the road, we saw 2 cars parked there, and I saw Kat highlight one of them. She saw me holding Tassira, who wouldn't stop whimpering from the pain in her leg. I saw Kat's expression change the moment she saw Tassira. "Kat, open the door, and let's get the hell out of here." She nodded and hurriedly went to open the back door. I stuffed Tassira inside as I sprinted to my side of the car and climbed in without delay. We sped off before the other guards could approach us with their firearms. I drove quickly as well as left the street on the south side and hit the highways. It wasn't until we hit the highways that I breathed. Tassira at the back breathed in and out before she called out to me. "Jace." Without looking back, I replied. "Yes, Tacy? Thank you so much for saving me. I appreciate and I love you." Kat suddenly choked on her saliva while I froze in my tracks. "Tacy, you aren't fine now," I said back, but she chuckled. "I'm serious, Jace. If she didn't jump to the front seat, I would have sat there and given you a good peck," she added, and I blinked. Wasn't she supposed to be injured and crying her eyes out, knowing the kind of a spoiled princess she is? I sighed and didn't say a word, but not after stealing a glance at Kat, who had her fist clenched around her scarf. "Jace, I was so scared back there. I was also thinking about you and you came," she said again as we silently drove through the night. I released a small smile and nodded. I promised Elder Gridshade to come and save you today, so I'm here now, I said, trying not to anger Kat and also anger Tassira. Thinking she would finally be quiet, she said again, Jace, I want to sit in the front seat. I frowned at that and sighed. Kat is all. Let her come to the back. She cut me shut and I frowned deeper. Kat couldn't handle it anymore and directly yelled out, Jace, stop the damn car. I turned to look at her as she glared at me. I reluctantly stopped the car in order not to anger her any further. Once the car stopped, Kat climbed out of the passenger seat, and for a moment, I thought she finally gave in to stay at the back and let Tassira stay at the front. But what happened next was unexpected. Kat pulled open the back door, pulled Tassira out carefully as Tassira screamed. Kat directly used the scarf in her hand to gag Tassira's mouth, muffling her screams. She also tied up Tassira's hand afterwards. I was surprised and stifled a laugh. This has got to be the funniest scene ever in my life. Tassira thrashed around while Kat climbed in and turned to me. Now drive, love. Without a second thought, I started the car and stepped on the gas. My mate would make a badass Luna for sure. Alex's POV. I walked downstairs to the living room to see Gage waiting for me. The moment our eyes met, he gestured with his head to come up to my office. I frowned, but still followed him over to my office. When we got into the office, Gage let out a tired sigh and slumped on the chair. You won't believe what I just found out, he said, and I raised a brow. What? He brought out an envelope, then handed it to me. I don't know why you suddenly asked me to dig this up again, but your instincts were right. Erika never actually hurt Serenity on the day of the moon goddess mate bond dissolving, Gage suddenly said, and I froze. I had been having this sudden urge to actually go through what happened on that particular day, but I pushed down those urges. I trusted Serenity, but I found it hard to trust Erika. Not until I found out about her true identity as the alpha of Ironclaw Pack. So, this is where we ended. I asked Gage to go in search of the truth, even if it's been months since it happened. How did you know? I asked without opening the envelope. Gage sighed again. He seemed quite exhausted. Well, there were CCTV cameras stationed everywhere around the Moon Goddess Temple too. But for some reason, the clips of that particular day were deleted and never to be found by anyone. I called in a computer expert, but after all the tryings, it still proved futile. So yesterday I went back to that area to check for anything, even if it was hopeless and stupid to do that. That was when someone came to me. He paused as if he was telling me some kind of late-night stories. Who came to you? I asked impatiently, and he explained immediately. An old lady came to me and informed me that on that very day, she was selling some meat by the side of the road when Serenity stopped Erika from leaving. At first, she wanted to make her presence known, but she went against it and continued observing. She also watched as we all came out of the hall to find the both of them. She said that the moment you began scolding Erika was the same moment Serenity aimed the dagger at her own stomach. He paused again, and I groaned. Will you stop pausing and tell me what happened? I yelled, and he raised his white flag. Sorry, man. I needed to swallow some saliva. Storytelling isn't for the weak, he quipped and proceeded. So, like I said before, the moment you scolded Erika was when she aimed the dagger on herself. Once Erika turned to leave, she stabbed herself and stuffed the dagger into Erika's hand as she screamed. I blinked at those words. Serenity? Was Gage joking around? Gage, it's Serenity we're talking about. What do you mean she stabbed herself and stuffed the knife into Erika's hand? I asked in disbelief, and Gage sighed. Even I found it hard to believe, but there's evidence. What evidence? I asked back. The one I gave you, damn it. Gage growled, and I rolled my eyes before tearing the envelope open. There were pictures in it, and I frowned. I felt the photos, and they definitely weren't edited. I opened the content one after the other and gasped, as I began to see the entire thing Gage had just narrated. Indeed, Serenity had a dagger in her hand, though it wasn't clear enough, but one could make out the silhouette of the object from the picture. I saw the way she stuffed it into Erika's hand, and how Erika got anxious, how I barked at her, and how she fled. "Oh no," I muttered subconsciously, and Gage clicked his tongue. "Oh yes, that's the truth right before us." Erika was innocent, and Serenity used herself to frame the poor girl. Gage gritted out, clearly angered by all these. I found it hard to believe, but evidence was presented against Serenity, and she couldn't possibly deny it. I would ask her about it when she returns. How could she be so petty as to do something like this? What if she had bled to death on that day just because she didn't like Erika? That was the strangest thing ever. I need to confront Saren about this. I spoke out of the blue, and Gage supported immediately. "Yes, you have to ask her why she did something as disgusting as this," he added, and I sighed. Saren had gone and messed up, and I felt anger begin to build in my chest. She knew me better than anyone that I hated liars and cheaters, but she went ahead to commit this crime. The thought of how I treated Erika was the only thing that clouded my mind. I had been unfair instead of trying to find out the truth first. Now, how do I apologize? I understood the implications of what happened, and how I acted rashly because Saren was injured, but I doubted that Erika would ever forgive me for my actions. It wasn't a surprise why she would treat me the way she treated me. I treated her the worst, and she must hate me now. "I messed up," I murmured, and Gage hummed. "You did, but also make sure to find out about the staircase incident. Who knows, she might also be innocent of the crime." At those words, I felt my heartbeat accelerate and my stomach clench. If she really turns up innocent, then I was done for. Alex's POV. We both left my office and walked downstairs to the living room. I already made up my mind that I would confront Serenity for her actions and go over to Erika's pack to apologize. Whatever conditions and decisions she makes, I would gladly follow them. I already hurt her a lot. Having someone like me in her life was heartbreaking. "Remember when I told you that you would definitely regret the very day you agreed on leaving Erika?" Elijah suddenly asked me, and I gulped. Elijah definitely knew how to hit a person in the gut. "Eli, save it. It's already done. There's nothing you can do about it now," he said with a chuckle, and I sighed. "There has to be a way. I don't know how to say this, but I want her back," I said, without even knowing it. "You want Serenity back?" he teased, and I groaned. "I want my Luna back." "Well, I guess I'll have to remind you again that your Luna is now the alpha of another pack, and would never settle for someone less. Even Alpha Noir is of higher standards than you. What makes you think that the princess you humiliated would come back to you when other men are out there dying to get just one glance from her?" Elijah sure knew how to poke fun of someone. Well, I couldn't blame him. I was partially at fault. No, it was all my fault for everything that happened on that day. Just as I sat in the living room with Gage, we heard the clicking sound of heels coming in, and we turned to the direction to see Serenity walking into the building. Speak of the devil and she appears. "Alex, you're here." She cheered the moment our eyes met, and without warning, she rushed towards me as usual for a hug. "Stay there," I gritted out before she could reach me, and she paused in her tracks. "Alex, what's wrong? Did I offend you?" she asked, trying to sound like the usual cute and adorable Serene. I would have been touched if I wasn't mad at her, but I was angry and wouldn't be touched by her words now. "Where are you coming from?" I asked instead, and she blinked. "Alex, I told you I got myself a job," she replied, a look of confusion flashing in her clear eyes. "Serenity, what work do you do?" It sounded like a real interview, but she frowned and replied, "Alex, what's all these about?" Just fucking answer the damn question. I yelled, and she shuddered in fear, seeing how serious I was. I work at the orphanage, she finally replied, and I frowned. I turned to Gage and blinked again. Then I took in the sight of her dressing. Dress like that? I asked again, trying to hide the doubt in my eyes for a while. What's wrong with dressing up this way? She asked, and I rolled my eyes. You wear an office outfit to an orphanage? You even have heels on. How do you do that? I mocked, and she frowned. Alex, what's gotten into you? She questioned, and I glanced at Gage, who gave me a nod of approval. I stood up to my feet and reached out a hand to pull her towards my office. Gage followed behind as I climbed the stairs, still holding Saren's arm. Once we got into the office, I harshly shoved her in, and she almost lost her balance. Alex, what if I had sprained something? She whined, but we weren't here for her whinings. I took up the photos and flung it in her face. Take a look at those and tell me what you think, I said, and sat opposite her. Gage made himself comfortable on the sofa. She opened the envelope while I watched her facial expressions for any loopholes. Her eyes widened in shock as she looked at the photos in her hand. What? Surprised? I asked, my voice betraying me for a split second. I trusted Serenity so much, and this was how she broke my trust? Alex, I can explain. Oh, sure. Go on and explain, I said, and relaxed. She opened her mouth and closed it back like a fish out of water. She began to fidget with the hem of her skirt while we both watched her with an amused expression. After she had finished fidgeting with no words to say, she finally relented and bursted out in tears, surprising me and Gage. Fine, Alex. I'm sorry. I rolled my eyes at her pathetic brain, which thought that I would fall for her tears again so easily. Sorry for what? For everything I did, she replied, and I raised a brow. You admit that Erika is innocent? Just like that? I asked in shock, and she gave a nod. Wow. That was fast and unexpected. I thought she would at least try to cover it up and lie her way through, but she didn't. She actually admitted it. Why did you do it? I asked her, and she sighed. I was. Speak, I yelled, and she bit down on her lower lip. I was jealous and angry that she treated you that way. She paused and looked down pitifully, but I shook my head in disbelief. Yes, I had feelings for Saren, but that was before and not anymore. I couldn't even imagine a life with her at the moment. But she already planned a perfect family in her mind? That was too much. Just 'cause she got jealous and angry. Alex, I'm sorry, she whispered again. Ask her about the staircase incident. Eli chimed, and I hummed in response. Saren, what about the staircase incident? At those words, I felt Saren stiffen in place. My gaze darkened as I stared at her. I guess I already know the answer to that question. Serenity's POV. My phone buzzed, and I saw Nate's name flashing on the screen. I took a deep breath and answered, trying to keep my voice steady. Yes? I asked, my mind already racing with possibilities of what news he might bring. Boss, I found something out. Nate's voice was serious, and I could sense the urgency in his tone. My heart skipped a beat. What did you find? I inquired, my curiosity piqued. And then he dropped the bombshell. The Luna of Thunderclaw Pack and her son, the Alpha. They're planning to take down Alex and his pack, Nate revealed. My mind whirled with the implications of this revelation. Noir still harbored such deep resentment against Alex, even after sending men to kill off Alex's men? Couldn't he just rest with that? The Luna, yeah? I asked calmly, occasionally taking glances behind me. Yes, boss. Nate responded, and I asked again. You do know that I can't let any harm befall Alex. Anyone who tries to harm him would get punished. Yes, boss. Good. Now, since the Luna Queen feels my Alex is a threat to her pack, please do the honors of taking her out of the way. I said coldly, and Nate breathed out heavily. I could feel the excitement radiating from him through the phone. All right, boss. And wait. Noir isn't of much use to. Take them both away. I don't care, I said, tapping my jaw and looking behind me again for any sign of the maids, guards, Gage, or Alex. Boss, but he is the alpha of that pack, Nate reminded me, and I laughed softly. Nate, you and I know that Noir isn't the rightful heir and the position belongs to someone else. The rightful owner is the unexpected person that was held hostage before now. All right, boss, wait for my good news, Nate assured me, and I was just about to end the call when he asked one last question. Boss, who should I pin the blame on? I shook my head and replied, don't pin it on anyone. Just kill them and make it look like an accident. I explained, and Nate hummed from the other end. It was time to say goodbye to Noir Heart. He had done enough already. From fighting Alex with tooth and nail, killing his men and sending masked men to infiltrate Alex's pack, it was time to help Alex put an end to this hate from Noir's side. I hope he rot in hell. Just then, I turned to see Alex coming down the staircase, and I hurriedly changed my expression to look the usual me. Alex. I made my voice break, and I was this close to rolling my eyes. Things I do for love. Alex didn't even look in my direction as he ignored me and walked out of the house. I sighed, running a hand through my hair. It was all that bitch's fault. And how in the name of the goddess was Alex able to get his hands on those photos? I made sure the security cameras of that very day didn't work. So, how did they get pictures of me stabbing myself to frame Erika? I bit down on my lower lip and tried to follow Alex, but went against it immediately. He could be angry, but that was for a while. Erika would never take him back, and he'll return when he sees he can't get her anymore. Thankfully, he only found out about the things I did to Erika, and not my identity in general. I sighed as I made my way out of the house again. I climbed into my car and left the mansion. The resentment I harbored towards Erika would never diminish, not after she killed my brother. The Ironclaw Pack might be strong and powerful, but not for long. Soon, I would bring them to their knees, make Alpha Jerome see his daughter suffer in my hands, and kill her off afterwards. They all had wronged me, including Gridshade. His punishment and suffering begins from his sweet daughter. My phone rang again, and I groaned. Without a word, I reached out to receive the call. What now? Boss, something's wrong. At those words, I frowned. What's with everything and going wrong today? What's wrong? I asked again as I drove down the direction of the base. Boss, can you come over to the base? He asked, and I raised a brow. Thankfully, I'm close. At my response, he sighed. All right, boss, we'll wait. He didn't let me say a word and directly ended the call. I put down the phone and sped up, also making sure not to drive past the speed limit. Hopefully, there wouldn't be any huge problems at the base. I drove past the trees and bushes, and in no time, I arrived at our base, located in the middle of the forest. Once I got down, Nate ran forwards with Shanks, one of my men. What happened this time? I asked, still making my way into the building. The anticipation of seeing the battered Tessira was building in a good way. It's about Gridshade's daughter, Shanks replied, his voice deep and calm. His face looked extremely calm, but I knew better than anyone that he was one of the monsters in this organization. I paused and turned to look at them with a questioning look in my eyes. What's that supposed to mean? What's wrong with Tara? I barked, and they both scratched the back of their necks. Actually, boss, Tessira escaped. The other guy we held hostage, the one posing as the Ironclaw Alpha's sister. He arrived with 2 armed men, and they took Tessira away. What? Erika's POV. I paced the living room back and forth, trying hard to hold back the anger building up in me. I was this close to snapping at this point. How could Jace leave the house when he wasn't fine yet? and Noir pissed me off even more at the so-called dinner date. Why was everything going so wrong in my life today? I sat down, stood up, sat again, but there was still no progress in calming myself. Just as I continued to pace the living, I also made a mental note to go in search of them once the time struck 10, and there wasn't any sign of them yet. The double doors were pushed open, and they both walked in, dressed in black and looking like assassins. "And where are you both coming from?" I barked the moment they stepped in. Kat gave Jace one glance, and then back at me. "Rika, don't be mad. We just saint. I'll tell her." Jace cut her shut, and I raised a brow, waiting for an explanation. "We went to save Tessira," he announced, and my eyes went wide in shock. They both went to save Tessira from where she had been held hostage? That was impossible. "How did you both find the exact location she was kept?" I asked, and Jace sighed as he sat on the couch. "I figured that it was the same place I was kept when I was abducted that day. So we went to save her." He answered me, and I blinked. "Did you save her? Did those men follow you?" "Oh, goddess," I panicked, and he shook his head immediately. "Yes, we managed to save her, and no one followed us." "So relax." I breathed out a sigh of relief and rushed over to Jace in order to check on his body. He might be hiding injuries again from me. "I'm fine," he added, and I rolled my eyes, still checking his body again. After I was satisfied, I moved away and breathed out. Jace chuckled, shaking his head at my attitude. "You shouldn't be worried about me. You should be thinking of the annual Christmas party you have to plan in a week's time. Father used to host it, but it's your turn to do that now." At those words, I froze. Yes, my father used to host a Christmas party for the entire Fangoria, inviting all alphas in the city to attend. He was always doing this to show appreciation to the alphas of every pack and their efforts in improving the development of Fangoria. "I'll host it, of course. We'll have a meeting with the financial secretary, and we'll talk about how to go about it," I said, and he nodded. "Before then, I'll go change up now. Tessira is safe with her father, and everything will go quite well from now on," Jace announced as he stood up to make his way upstairs. I stared at Katrina. "You let him go in that condition?" I asked, and she shook her head with a bitter smile. "I tried to stop him but ended up getting threatened," she said, and I chuckled. Jace was indeed one hell of a person. Kat walked up to me as a grin appeared on her face. She pulled away the ski mask folded on her forehead, and I shook my head. "Did you have to dress this way? It's too much when you didn't even do anything at the scene," I complained, and earned a laugh from her. "I just want to fit in." I shrugged my shoulders as she suddenly pulled me to sit at the other side. "Now tell me, how was the date night?" she asked, and I frowned. "Disastrous." I gritted out and frowned. "What happened?" "Noir sucks at this stuff. It was more like he was being forced to do all that," I replied, and she tucked her lip in as if about to laugh. "What?" she asked me, and I sighed. "So Noir and I went over to a restaurant owned by his pack. But he was acting so unnatural, and it pissed me off so bad," I said again, remembering just how he acted like I was the man or something. "Why did he do that?" Kat asked, and I glared at her. "How am I supposed to know?" I yelled, and she finally bursted out laughing. All right. Noir isn't the one then," she said, and waved her hands in the air. "I don't know, but I don't feel like going out with him anymore. It feels weird in some way," I explained to her, and she nodded. "It does. I'll go change up now. Then I'll see you later." I nodded while she stood up and walked upstairs. Just as I relaxed into the couch, someone came to massage the tensed muscles on my shoulder, and I instantly relaxed to this person's touch. When I looked up to see the face, I'm surprised to see Paula with a grin as she watched me. "Hey, P, where did you run off to?" I asked as she came to stand before me. She chuckled softly and sighed. "It's a long story," she said instead, and I narrowed my eyes at her. Summarize. She sighed, running a hand through her brown locks, and said, Rika, it came as a surprise to me too. My curiosity piqued even more, and I urged her to spill what she never expected. You won't believe it either, she said again, and I groaned. Stop cutting it and tell me. She raised her both hands in the air, then began her explanation. A few days ago, I had fallen sick, and I went over to the Pack's infirmary for a checkup. That was when I was confirmed. 2 weeks pregnant. At those words, my eyes widened in shock. What? You? You're pregnant? Erika's POV. It felt like it was just yesterday we were celebrating Paula's pregnancy. But in reality, a couple of days had passed, and I was on the verge of collapsing. Why? The Christmas party for the Alphas of Fangoria was coming up in 2 days, and there was still so much to put in place. It felt like I wasted the days doing nothing. I still had to make arrangements for entertainment. The enlisted games for the party hadn't been set up. My dress was still pending, and the stupid welcome speech. I rubbed my temple to ease some of the headaches threatening to blow up my brain. Resting against the wall, I took a deep breath and tried to focus on the present. Everyone was busy with something. The decorations were coming out nicely, too. It brought a small smile to my face. I shouldn't burden myself with the things I have left to do. I should focus on what was getting done. Erika, I blinked, pushing myself off the wall. Jace took long strides towards me. Hey, I greeted him with a smile. You're a mess. Have you ever had some sleep? The question was pointed directly at my eye bags. The party is in 2 days, Jace. You don't expect me to sleep when there's so much to do, I answered warily. The stress was starting to get to me. My vision was starting to blur. Even my body was begging for a break now, but I couldn't let anyone see that. There would be enough time to rest once the party was over. You don't have to do everything. Take a rest. I'm sure the servants can handle things on their own. They don't need you supervising them, Jace told me. Okay, it was mostly because I was exhausted. He would bug me if I proved stubborn. About the party, I might not hang around for it, he informed me. I furrowed my eyes at him. Why? I need to go to Avenir City. I don't know how long I will stay there. And it can't wait? I interrupted. I didn't want to make a fuss now. No. I need to do something very important there. I can't miss it for anything. His vague answer bothered me. What exactly is this important thing you can't miss? Do you know where Avenir City is? What business do you even have there? I probed further. Like I said, it is very important I go there. I will be back before you know it. Don't give me that, Jace. All traces of exhaustion vanished from my voice. If you can't say the important thing that's taking you miles away from home, then I'm afraid you will have to kill the idea. I am not going to let you go out there on your own, feeling adventurous during this critical period. Do you know how dangerous it is to travel at a time like this? Jace, you just recovered. You don't need to lecture me. I am well aware of the dangers, but I can handle them. The stubborn man wouldn't listen, of course. That's what you say now, but you can never tell what will happen. I still insist you sit your butt back here. After the party, the guards and I can accompany you to wherever you want to go, I stated. Irritation flashed in his eyes. Stop treating me like a child. I can take care of myself. Can you? I challenged, shooting up a brow. That sent him off the edge. You know what? I'm done with this conversation. With that, he stormed away out of the room. Noticing the attention he drew to us, I let out a groan. Why can't that man-child just understand I'm trying to keep him safe? I know how many times I thought I'd bluffed about being capable of protecting myself, and ended up getting hurt. The approaching footsteps drew my attention to Kat. Great. She's about to lecture me because I upset her mate. Rika, she placed a hand on my shoulder. Calm down, okay? Your mate is so stubborn. I tried to protect him because I have his best interest at heart, but he goes ahead to throw a tantrum, accusing me of treating him like a child. I complained to her. The more reason you have to calm down. Jace is not a kid, Rika. He can make his own decisions. You cannot force him to do what you want all the time, Kat said softly. I'm not forcing him to do anything. I'm just trying to protect him from the dangers out there. Those people could be looking for him. I won't be alive and watch harm come to him, I stated. She shook her head with a chuckle. You complain about him being stubborn, but you are just as stubborn. I looked away with a scoff. Just try listening to him, all right? I don't want my best friend and mate fighting. I'll leave you both to argue your lungs out, and I won't sympathize with any of you. Her serious expression made me laugh. I'm serious, Rika, she groaned. Fine, I'll go talk to him. I headed to his room, because that was the only place I could think of. Knocking twice, I pushed the door open and walked in. I didn't say you could come in, he said grumpily. How about you come push me out? I wiggled my brows and he looked away. Taking it as an invite, I joined him on the bed. You claim you're not a baby, but here you are, sulking in your room, I teased. I'm not sulking, he frowned, shooting me a warning look. I decided to let it be. Apologies first, teases later. Fine. I'm sorry about my reaction earlier. It's just that I care deeply about you. It would break me if something happened to you. He still didn't look at me. A part of me knew he was no longer mad at me, but he wanted me to grovel a bit. Come on, I already apologized. I'm your sister. I have the right to be worried. Besides, you wouldn't tell me why you needed to go so far away. I tried to make him see reasons with me. I guess you're right. There is no reason for me to keep it from you since it directly affects you, he said, facing me. Directly affects me? Why do I have a bad feeling about this? Is this going to be another problem? Haven't I been through enough already? My head was starting to pound once again. What do you mean? I have something to tell you about Avenir City. Erika's POV. Tell me what about Avenir City? I asked in surprise. Jace sighed and ran a hand through his hair. A few days back, I visited Fagel, he announced, and I blinked. Fagel? Dad's driver? Where is he? At the hospital, but he has already recovered fully and is perfectly fine now, he added, and I nodded in return. What about him? Jace looked into my eyes, breathed out, and began his story. I visited Fagel a few days back, and there he told me about a certain lady who came to him in his ward, asking for help in taking down the same masked people with the logo. Fagel went ahead to ask if she knew anything about them, but she said she knew nothing except that this organization was linked to a family in Avenir City named the Wren family. He paused, watching my face, and a frown appeared on it. The Wren family? I asked, and he nodded in return. There are so many Wren families in Avenir. Which one of them did she refer to? I asked him. He shrugged. That's the thing. We don't know the particular Wren family responsible for it. I've asked someone to check all Wren families, but none seemed suspicious enough. That's why I decided to go to the city with Fagel to find a particular family. I shook my head instantly. This is dangerous, Jace. That nurse might be one of them, and this might be a plot to bring you and Fagel over there. I can't let you risk your life again, never. So it's either I go to Avenir by myself to find the truth, or we send some guards. You just can't go. Jace glared at me and scoffed, as if you can stop me. What if this is true, and this is just the gateway we needed for a breakthrough in finding their masterminder? I watched him with a worried look in my eyes. This was going to be the most dangerous mission Jace would ever take on. What if this was a trap? What happens if Jace is killed? But Jace, I began to say when he placed a hand over my lips. Rika, please, let me do this. We have to find the person responsible for the life we lived so far. We need to find who is responsible for our father's condition, and we need to finish up the entire enemies before he gets better. So allow me to do this. I'll find out the truth, and we'll live happily," he said convincingly, and I bit down on my lower lip, trying to stifle a cry about to burst out. If truly he could make a breakthrough on this journey, then I would have no choice but to let him go. Jace was no child to be tied down at home, so I would let him do as he pleases. "You can go, but please take the guards too, not just Fagel," I pleaded, and he nodded. "Sure, now go back and continue the preparations while I get ready," he said, and stood up straight. "I'll ask them to get the private plane ready for you." "Sure, thanks." I nodded before standing up straight to walk out of the room and downstairs. I asked the butler to prepare for Jace's departure. I would make sure that he at least lived well like the royalty he is. I placed a call across to Avenir and booked a hotel from their most expensive one there. After these things were sorted, I went towards Jace's room to inform him about it. Just then, I saw Kat dragging a suitcase out and coming towards Jace's room. I frowned, raising a questioning brow. "Where are you heading to?" I asked from afar, and she finally turned to look at me. "Rika, you're here. I'm heading home for today. I'll be back on the day of the party. Let's say in the morning," she explained, and I blinked. All my friends had been extremely busy of late, and it made me miss them quite a lot of time. I moved from my standing position and towards her direction. I reached out to pull her into a deep hug as my emotions scattered all over the place. "Do you have to go?" I asked, my voice muffled for having been buried into her clothes. "Yes, my parents called me. Don't worry, I'll be back before you know it," she assured me, and I hummed. "Be safe," was all I said before she pulled away and turned to walk into Jace's room with me. We knocked and got into the room to see him already dressed and pulling his luggage out. "You ready?" I asked, and he nodded. "Yes, Captain." He gave the response, and we chuckled. His gaze then went over to Kat's luggage. "Why do you have luggage?" he questioned, and Kat answered. "I'm heading home for today. I'll be back on the morning of the party." Jace turned and gave me a pitiful look. Oh my, I feel for Rika. First, Paula went back to her pack, and now Kat is leaving. My poor sister. He used a sing-song voice, and I almost hurled something at him. "It's fine. I'm used to helping myself. I'm used to being alone, and I won't miss you all too much," I said, sounding calm, but feeling lonely inside already. They both glanced at each other, then at me before bursting out laughing. "I doubt, but we won't force you," Jace probed. I rolled my eyes at them, then gestured for them to walk out of the room with me. "Everything for your departure is ready," I announced. "Oh, by the way, Jace, where are you going?" Kat asked, and Jace answered dryly. "Avenir City." "So you won't be available for the party?" she asked again, and Jace shook his head. "Oh, all right. I wish you a safe trip then," she said as we finally stepped outside the house. The cars were already ready to move. The one that should pick Kat and the one that should pick Jace. They both gave me a huge, then gave each other a hug. "I'll see you both soon, Kat. Take care." "Jace, be safe," I said calmly, and they both nodded before entering their supposed vehicles. I waved at them until the cars left the premises. The goddess will go with them both. Especially Jace.